For about 135 million years, dinosaurs were the undisputed rulers of the Earth. And they might still have been today if not for the cataclysmic comet that struck Earth some 65 million years ago. However, our planet has been around for a lot longer than the dinosaurs' reign and, as it turns out, nature has been quite adept at producing nightmare-inducing monsters other than dinosaurs. To think that dinosaurs are the only scary inhabitants of our prehistoric past would be a big, big mistake. From ocean dwellers far bigger than great whites to sky dwellers bigger than giraffes to an elephant-sized sloth, here are 10 of the scariest, and most fascinating, prehistoric creatures. Number 1. Phorusrhacidae. Their scientific name is neither particularly intimidating nor easy to remember, so let's just refer to these large, flightless, carnivorous birds by their colloquial name, terror birds. They grew to between 3 and 10 feet long, stood up to 10 feet tall, could run at speeds of 30 miles per hour, and had a giant, curved beak, like an eagle's. The only living relative of the terror bird is the sirima, a 35-inch bird that's about as threatening as a butterfly. Nevertheless, don't underestimate the terror bird, a top predator for almost 60 million years. Paleontologists reckon that terror birds were no crumb-loving pigeons, and not just because there was no bread back then. The terror birds called forests their home, likely lying in wait to ambush the many small mammals that proliferated in South America after the fall of the dinosaurs. But their skulls and beaks probably weren't strong enough to tackle large prey, biomechanical studies have shown. With their massively developed legs, they would have been more than capable of chasing down scampering critters. These were extremely nimble, swift predators, hitting speeds of perhaps 30 miles per hour. This shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone who has witnessed the surprisingly frantic, not to mention hilarious, way that ostriches run, like giant 40-mile-per-hour feather dusters having panic attacks. At the end of terror bird legs were talons, so it could have been that the beasts fired an initial jab with their beaks, then stood on their prey and rapidly shrove it to death. Or perhaps chomped down on their quarry and shook it until its spine snapped. Makes you appreciate street pigeons a little more, doesn't it? Number 2. Andrewsarchus. Andrewsarchus is one of the world's most tantalizing prehistoric animals. Its 3-foot-long, tooth-studded skull indicates that it was a giant predator, but the fact is that we have no idea what the rest of this mammal's body looked like. One of the amazing things about Andrewsarchus is that it lived at a time when mammals were just beginning to achieve giant sizes, the Eocene epoch, from about 45 to 35 million years ago. The size of this predator indicates that mammals may have grown much bigger, much faster, than had previously been suspected, and if Andrewsarchus had a predatory lifestyle, it would also mean that this area of Central Asia was well stocked with comparably sized plant-eating prey. If one naively extrapolates from the size of its skull, it's easy to come to the conclusion that Andrewsarchus was the biggest predatory terrestrial mammal that ever lived. But not the biggest predatory mammal overall. That honor goes to prehistoric killer whales like Leviathan, which was named after Leviathan, a sea monster mentioned in the Bible. However, that weight estimate drops dramatically if one considers the possibility of other, less bulky Andrewsarchus body plans. You don't need to be a rocket scientist, or an evolutionary biologist, to conclude that the jaws of Andrewsarchus were immensely strong. Otherwise, there would have been no reason for it to evolve with such an enormous, elongated skull. Unfortunately, given the lack of fossil evidence, paleontologists have yet to determine exactly how strong this mammal's bite was, and how it compared with that of the much bigger Tyrannosaurus rex, which lived about 20 million years before. Number 3. Platybelodon. There are only 3 species of elephants living today: the African bush elephant, the African forest elephant, and the Asian elephant. While being clearly different from one another, all 3 share the same basic characteristics: mostly hairless big bodies, thick legs, long trunks, and tusks derived from the upper incisors. However, this uniformity undermines the astounding variety of extinct elephant relatives, which are collectively called proboscideans. There were the famous hairy mammoths and mastodons, the enormous Deinotherium with downward-pointing tusks coming out of its lower jaw, and the long-faced Gomphotherium with not only 2, but 4 tusks coming out of its mouth. Still, one of the most bizarre extinct proboscideans was Platybelodon. Platybelodon has puzzled scientists ever since its discovery in the early 1920s. While the overall body did resemble modern elephants, its skull indicates something very different was going on. It had a very elongated mandible from which 2 long flat teeth protruded, forming a distinctly shovel-shaped appendage that extended far past the upper jaw. However, recent research by paleontologist Gina Semprevin and colleagues confirmed a theory put forth in 1992 by David Lambert. The microscopic patterns of damage present on the teeth of these animals suggested that they were being used against rougher surfaces, like bark, branches, and other land-based plants instead of soft aquatic vegetation, which would not cause as much tooth wear. Thankfully, they did us a favor by dying sometimes en masse, next to or in rivers, which are prime spots for easy fossilization. Although they may not have posed a major threat to humans if they were still around today, it's safe to say that these animals still have one of the freakiest mugs in history. Number 4. Helicoprion. Of all the vexing fossil mysteries that have confounded paleontologists, few have been as persistent as that of Helicoprion. The name was given to petrified whorls of elongate teeth that look like 270 million-year-old renditions on the theme of a buzzsaw. At first sight, the teeth didn't look like they belonged to a shark at all. Coiled upon itself in a circular whorl, the bizarre tooth row superficially resembled the shells of extinct cousins of nautilus and squid called ammonites. After studying tooth whorls found in the Ural Mountains, though, the Russian geologist Alexander Petrovich Karpinski recognized them for what they were. In 1899 he described them under the name Helicoprion as the remains of an ancient shark. Just how they fit in the shark's mouth was another matter altogether. His best guess was that the unusual feeding apparatus was attached to the nose of this long-dead creature, like a permanently rolled-up party horn. But the remains continued to puzzle paleontologists for over a century. In a study published in the Journal of Morphology in 2013, Jason Ramsey, a biologist from the University of Rhode Island, and the team from last year's study have determined that the Helicoprion was best suited to feed on soft-bodied prey, and the chomping motion of the jaws coupled with the curvature of its unique tooth whorl resulted in multiple tooth functions. According to the abstract, the posterior teeth cut and pushed prey deeper into its mouth while the middle teeth pierced and cut, and the anterior teeth hooked and dragged more of the prey into the mouth. Thank God this terrifying buzzsaw killer went extinct some 225 million years ago, because it's a whole pile of nope. Number 5. Dunkleosteus. The armor-plated fish Dunkleosteus was a 33-foot long, 10 meters, 4-ton, 3,600 kilograms, monster that terrorized other marine life in the Devonian period, which spanned 415 million to 360 million years ago. While lacking true teeth, Dunkleosteus used two long, bony blades in its mouth to snap and crush nearly any creature unfortunate enough to encounter it. In research published on Tuesday in Britain's Royal Society journal Biology Letters, they said the big fish's bite packed 11,000 pounds, 5,000 kilograms, of force. The bony blades in its mouth, almost certainly enamel-like teeth, concentrated the bite force into a small area at the tip at an astonishing force of 80,000 pounds, 36,000 kilograms, per inch too. That, the scientists proclaimed, crowns Dunkleosteus as the all-time chomping champion of sharks. The researchers also determined that Dunkleosteus could open its mouth very rapidly, in a 50th of a second, which formed a suction force drawing prey into the gaping mouth. It is very rare for a fish to possess both a powerful and a fast bite, they said. This dominant predator ate just about anything it wanted. The menu included hard-shelled ammonoids with many tentacles, as well as other armored fish, researchers said. It also probably dined on primitive sharks. In fact, sharks achieved greater size and diversity only after Dunkleosteus, and its like went extinct for reasons unclear to scientists. That is the end of the first part of this series. If you had to choose to bring one of the prehistoric horrors back from the dead, which will be your chosen one? Let me know in the comments section. Thanks for watching and subscribe so you don't miss part 2. Stay tuned.